Welcome to Leading the Conversation. We're here today to talk about the changing landscape of apprenticeships, and I'm here with James Walker, our Director of Apprenticeships here at Manchester Metropolitan University. So James, to kick us off, please could you give us a short overview of the key reforms shaping the skills landscape, what these changes mean for Greater Manchester and for the wider regions that we serve?
Okay. Obviously, it's incredibly volatile at the moment in terms of the policy changes the government are kind of trying to introduce, and for really sort of what feels like on the face value kind of really worthwhile reasons. They're talking about the growth and skills levy, and it's not just about apprenticeships now in the space, it's about wider skills landscapes. For example, we know that 1 in 5 16 to 24-year-olds are out of employment or training or education. And that's a real concern for the government at the moment because those people are not accessing the same opportunities as other people in the job market. But the reality is that creates opportunity, but also creates pressure on the system. You know, there's some real challenges there. There is the kind of uncertainty that they're creating as the direction of travel gets more and more complex. People don't know how to invest in skills at the moment because they don't know what's further down the line. Some of the flexibilities that have introduced have been very minimal at first. And they seem to be creating some financial headroom to do that. For example, we saw in January the level 7 funding going, and that was so that it could be reprioritized towards investment in younger learners, and create those job opportunities and those learning opportunities for those learners. But also they're trying to create room for things such as more modular studies. So they've introduced from April opportunities to use the levy to invest in short courses, or what they're now calling apprenticeship units, which will give people an opportunity to focus on upskilling in very specific parts of maybe new skills or parts of an apprenticeship program. And they could probably stack that over time as they develop in the role. And so that allows potentially employers to pivot their training focus on bits of the workforce at different points in a more dynamic way. So it could be very positive, but what we don't really know at this point is the full picture. So I think in Greater Manchester, the other thing that the government is looking for is how providers of all types, that's universities, that's further education colleges, independent training providers, and other organizations such as the employers themselves, might work together to support those regional skills needs. But nationally, also the government set out a very high ambition around the industrial strategy that sets out 8 kind of high growth areas. I think that's one of the key things that we need to try and work with government collectively to help stimulate the economy so that people can create new opportunities for these learners and for people all the way through their careers.
Thanks, James. So you've talked about some of the challenges that we're seeing with these reforms coming down the line. What are some of the opportunities that you see for employers and for the local economy?
So the government's obviously sort of focused, as I said, on younger learners, but also they are starting to kind of think about how the apprenticeship reforms that they're introducing could streamline and remove complexity. So one of the things that they're looking at is changing the way assessment happens on programs. So over time, it's felt that apprenticeships maybe have become more and more complex and heavily regulated around assessment, more so than some other qualifications. Hopefully we'll strip out some of the complexity for employers. But also they're doing things for some of the shorter duration apprenticeships. They're reducing the duration further. They recognize that sometimes someone doesn't even need to do full 12 months training. They're trying to reduce some complexity for the way that smaller organizations kind of get involved with apprenticeships, and increasing the kind of the support that those employers can access apprentices with, which is really great to see. Other opportunities might be as the kind of focus on the industrial strategy evolves, there might be sort of a change in sort of the product offer of apprenticeships. So we've started to see some of those come to the fore. So foundation apprenticeships have crept in. So that's helping kind of people bridge that gap between someone who maybe has just left school or college, or hasn't been in employment for some time, the foundation apprenticeship might be ideal for them. But I think also, that they're looking at responding to the multitude of what employers are looking for with these new kind of flexible ways to use the levy. And I think that will create new products, new apprenticeship programs aligned to the industrial strategy more. The question will be whether that's at the expense of other things that are currently in the system. And obviously they can't all be funded from the same pot. So there might be an expectation employers are spending more on investing in their own skills development in certain areas, or that people who want to engage that learning pay for it themselves. So I think there might be a direction of travel where the government feels that they have the growth and skills levy as government money rather than employer money, to dictate how that should be focused and prioritized. And employers still can use that money, but only towards the kind of areas where the government feels that it's got the most return on investment. And I think that's really important that we work collectively together to inform that. The government don't have all the answers, and employers are very experienced, and in the last 10 years or longer since the kind of previous reforms, employers have been very much at the driving seat in setting what the skills needs are and skills priorities and how apprenticeship standards should be kind of formed, what skills, knowledge, and behaviours are required in that job role. And I think, employers really have the experience of what works in their industry sectors, but we have to collectively come together to say what's really important for industry and what's maybe nice to have, and how these things could be effectively balanced. So I think it needs to be an ongoing conversation. But certainly what we don't want to see is employers holding back, because one of the changes we haven't talked about is the reduction in the amount of time they have to spend their levy. So employers might be thinking, you still got 2 years, which was the previous way to spend your levy, but actually that's been reduced to 12 months. They're trying to kind of make sure that's going back into the government pot to fund different priorities quicker, not sitting in levy accounts, which means that employers perhaps should be thinking more dynamically and quickly about how to spend that money to kind of fund their priorities. So if there's particular skills that they want to invest in the next kind of 6 to 12 months, it's not guaranteed that the government will allow employers to use a growth and skills levy to fund those. So maybe they should be talking to providers such as ourselves about what those needs are and whether we can accommodate that skills needs in the time frame they need it.
That's a really good overview, James. Thank you. You touched there on the fact that there's been 10 years of apprenticeships, and we've been a provider of apprenticeships for those 10 years as well. Thinking more granularly, what's Manchester Met doing to respond to these challenges and support employers in the region in adopting reforms?
Yeah, so Manchester Met obviously has, we work with over 750 employers, and that's not just in Greater Manchester. We also work with employers across the UK. We've always tailored very carefully our skills offering, our apprenticeship offering, to kind of local regional needs, but also what employers are looking for across that broader workforce requirement across the nation. So some of the things that we're looking at doing are kind of pivoting the apprenticeships that we offer to speak to the industrial strategy. So some of the kind of investment areas that the government are wanting to focus on, so those high growth opportunities that some employers might be looking to move into or expand into. There'll be some really kind of important sort of growth areas that we can support training with. So we're looking at developing new programs. So one of the things that we're looking at, for example, is advanced manufacturing engineering. That's kind of heavily mentioned in terms of the industrial strategy and high growth area. We've got lots of kind of really great assets in the university campus that we've really invested in as a university. Got some really cutting edge expertise in terms of AI and cybersecurity. And so these things will cut across different organizations in terms of what they're trying to develop as terms of skills. We're also looking at moving the portfolio a little bit to expand so that people can have whole careers with us. So not in every area, but we might be looking to increase our offering in level 4s and level 5 apprenticeship programs, and that will allow someone to start kind of maybe earlier in their career, start to develop some skills, step off a qualification, and maybe kind of when they come to the next stage in their career development, they can still continue that journey with us. But also we're looking at opportunities to work with other providers in the region, which is definitely something the government's expecting in terms of higher education and further education to come together around regional priorities. So looking for those kind of really meaningful partnerships so the employer knows that we're working collectively together across the region, and that they know that when they place a learner with, say, a college, that they've got the next step with the university. So if we're not necessarily doing all the suite of qualifications they need, they know that they've got a trusted partner with ourselves and the people we're working with.
What do you see as the vital next steps for employers to influence and engage with the evolving national conversation around the skills landscape?
Yeah, I think employers will be at different stages and might not have exactly the same awareness of what's happening. But regardless, I think it's really important to be engaging locally with your MPs. If you're in a big city, such as Greater Manchester, with your combined mayoral authorities, you need to be talking to your employer representative bodies. If you're part of a trade organisation, they help amplify your voice, all these kind of different employer groups. I think joint conversations as well. We're looking at opportunities to kind of talk with other providers across the sector and come together to have a collective conversation. We're certainly doing that in the region as well. So that's not just with other providers, but with employer partners, with the combined authority, with the Chamber of Commerce. So kind of have that collective Greater Manchester voice. But employers should also be doing that. I mean, it's really, each of us having an individual conversation is great, but coming together en masse really helps to add and amplify those messages. That does mean sometimes we might have to compromise. We not all have all the same perspectives. We might have to kind of prioritize which issues we want to kind of target. I think the more that can be added to those sort of conversations, if you feel passionate about those and they're important to you as an organization, you can approach us as a university. We can kind of point you through to the right kind of contacts, and we can help support you with that. Or you might already have your networks. Please do use them. I'd highly recommend it. And I wouldn't wait because it's a live conversation. It's lively, and the government are being quite quick in decision making, which is something we've not necessarily seen in the previous government. They are bringing changes at pace.
Reflecting on a decade of delivery here at Manchester Met, can you talk about the milestones or achievements that you believe best demonstrate how we've become leaders in the degree apprenticeship space?
First milestone, I guess, was getting involved in apprenticeships right in the beginning. We've been in it for over 10 years now. We've always been at the forefront of championing degree apprenticeships. As soon as we got the first degree apprentices enrolled with us in the Digital Technology Solutions degree apprenticeship, we saw how quickly, even while people were on program, the impact it had for getting, opening up opportunities for people to access higher education. Maybe they hadn't had that opportunity before. So that was great to see people doing so well on program. The fact that they were able to bear those skills that they were developing, the knowledge they were developing on program so quickly into the work environment was great for their careers, but also great for the employers in terms of productivity and the impact. Our degree apprentices work on really significant projects quite often within organizations that can be quite transformational in parts of the business, bringing significant extra income, helping small companies grow, bringing innovation into the workplace, bringing new skills in that perhaps, and new ways of thinking that perhaps didn't previously exist. We know that our degree apprentices are highly motivated and really enthusiastic, and they bring that work experience and the kind of education they're gaining on the program together really effectively in the workplace. We work really closely with employers to make sure that's really kind of well aligned. I think, one of kind of the key things we've seen over those 10 years is significant growth in the number of the apprenticeships that we deliver. We have over 3,500 now on program across a wide range of subject areas. That program offering is developing over time as well, as we continue to work with employers to meet that and address the kind of skill shortage areas that they're looking to develop. Our employers, our apprentices are really highly satisfied. We're rated as excellent in terms of satisfaction from both our employers and our apprentices on the government website. We have a number of industry awards recognized from different sectors. We're sector leading in terms of our influence in terms of policy making and decision making. We're regularly asked to go and kind of talk to other institutions. And the fact that we work with over 750 employers is not by chance. It's because people really value working with us on apprenticeships, and they really see how much passion we have around apprenticeships. I think milestones are an interesting one. I mean, there's probably many along our journey, and there's probably so many awards now that it's difficult to name them all. But I think what's consistent throughout that journey is our commitment, and the fact that we've always had exceptionally high achievement rates, well above the sector. Our apprentices not only succeed when they achieve, they get astounding results. We really, really do support our apprentices to do the best they can from all walks of life. We really see a wide range of people coming onto our programs. I talked about social mobility before. You can probably see in our Force for Impact report in terms of some of those metrics, but we really see routes for different people from different backgrounds, really being able to fast track their careers, to really kind of develop within the workforce, to get into higher education when they thought perhaps it wasn't a route that was available to them anymore. Lots of our apprentices are school leavers, but many are also, mid-career or looking for the next step in terms of retraining. They're probably juggling lots of different life priorities, but we wrap around a huge amount of support to kind of make sure that they're really kind of able to succeed on the program, feel part of the Manchester Met community.
Fantastic, thank you. So finally, let's end looking ahead rather than looking back. So what are your ambitions for the future of apprenticeships at Manchester Met?
I think personally, my ambition would be to make sure that we're responding effectively to the government's agenda, but also doing that in partnership with our employers in the region. I think there are some real opportunities in that kind of ambition the government has set out with industrial strategy, with that sort of regional collaboration that we really want to actively engage with. I think there's some opportunities to work with further education institutions across the region, to kind of really look at those more nuanced skills needs within the region as well that maybe kind of differ from the national picture, but also to speak. We're a national provider as well in our apprenticeship programs, so speak to the national agenda as well. There's a direction of travel potentially where some of this sort of funding around apprenticeships might be devolved, so that might go down to kind of region level. That adds complexity for some of our national based employers that have workforce across different regions. I think it's really important that we work with employers to support them in a wide range of ways. And there's lots of ways that the university can do that. So I think one of the things that also I'd like to do is to kind of deepen some of our employer partnerships and then make sure that they understand that it's not just apprenticeships that we deliver. We are exceptional in areas of research. We're one of the biggest and most kind of popular destinations for students here, with some really exciting, really highly qualified graduates that are emerging into the workforce. There's opportunities to take some of those graduates on. There's opportunities to do knowledge exchange, get some of our academic staff into the workplace environment and jointly create new innovation together. The university is adapting some of its portfolio into new areas in line with the industrial strategy. That creates new opportunities for apprenticeships as well. So I think it's quite exciting for the team to think about new products that the employers, new ways the employers can work with us. I'm looking for those opportunities to continue to work with our employing partners who are incredibly important to us, and we look forward to working with them for many years to come.